Can we talk about my beloved Patrick Mahomes and how the Kansas City Chiefs have been kicking ass here over the past few weeks after everyone wanted to write them off and say they'd struggle to make the playoffs, and now they are the number one seed. I know they didn't win by that many against the Denver Broncos, but Patrick Mahomes did just enough to get me a 5-point victory in fantasy last week. So I'm still okay with it.
Well, I'm happy to hear he got you a victory, because he didn't get me a victory, because if he continues to have weeks where he doesn't throw a single passing touchdown, not a lot of fantasy owners will get a victory in that one. In fact, there was legitimate discussions we had. Should I start Kirk Cousins over Patrick Mahomes this week? Because that is one thing that I am debating as I head into this game.
I love that. This is similar to the conversation we just had about Lakers fans, where they're like, Russell Westbrook is terrible. And they're like, well, would you rather have Buddy Hield? It's like, Patrick Mahomes is inconsistent. I'm like, compared to Kirk Cousins, the most inconsistent quarterback I've ever seen other than Carson Wentz.
Listen, if I can decide on getting at least a somewhat guaranteed 15 points versus a bottoming out with a 6 or 7 point week, there is a discussion to be had there. Now, the alternative discussion here is they are facing the Raiders this week. So 2 of the last 8 weeks, one of those last 8 weeks was against the Raiders. And one of those games, he threw 5 passing touchdowns when he went against this defense just a few weeks ago. And it was during that preview that I did make the bold claim that I didn't see the Chiefs competing for a Super Bowl this year. Now, that's regardless of what their record was. That's regardless if they win the division. I did not see this team as a Super Bowl team. Now, have I backed off of that? No, I have not, because I still don't have faith in this offense. The fact that they've been getting exposed consistently week after week after week with this halo coverage, as they're calling it, for Travis Kelce, and of course the 2 deep safety that has neutralized Tyreek Hill. Hill has been in a little bit of funk. He's dropping passes that he doesn't normally drop. Patrick Mahomes is not taking the easy dump offs. And you were expecting a little bit more of them coming off of a bye week. Andy Reid off a bye week, guys. Come on. They should have put up 50 against the Broncos. Now, I understand it's mostly expectations versus reality. Our expectations of what Patrick Mahomes is. He set our expectations too high. I mean, an MVP season, 50 passing touchdowns year after year after year. And here we are in this 2021 season where it just doesn't look the same. I mean, I mentioned it out the gate here. 2 straight games without a passing touchdown. That would have been unheard of for 2019 Patrick Mahomes, for 2020 Patrick Mahomes. And yet it's happening. Now, they're going against this Raiders team that they lost Kenyon Drake for the year. They're banged up defensively. Darren Waller has a knee and back issues. Carl Nassib has injuries. Corey Littleton has injuries. Denzel Perryman has injuries. So they might get another scheduling break in facing the Raiders at the right time. We've also mentioned the Raiders' problems where they have Rich Vespaccio and Greg Olsen trying to piece it together in the wake of John Gruden getting fired. You're missing your number 1 wide receiver on the year because of a unfortunate accident, that the last thing that they would have expected coming into the year. So they get a break here in the sense of when they're facing the Raiders. Now, I should say the last time the Raiders went into Arrowhead, they did get the victory, but this is a Raiders team that's just so depleted that I can't confidently put my bet on them, because they're just not the same Raiders team that started the year. They're not the same Raiders team that was 3-0. They're a Raiders team that I believe has lost 7 of their last 10 games and faces the end of the year where they face the Chargers again. They face the Chiefs. They face the Colts. They face the Browns. They face a lot of teams that are going to determine whether or not they can make the playoffs. Part of my concern here is with how inconsistent the Chiefs offense has been. I kind of wonder if that's going to cost Eric Bieniemy any coaching opportunities this year, because we did see him and Andy Reid get in somewhat of a talking dispute in that game against the Broncos. So I kind of wonder what is the issues there. I don't think the Chiefs are making adjustments. Now, can the Raiders make adjustments from what killed them a couple weeks ago? That is, I think, going to be the big determining factor in this game. I think you know which way I'm going to lean for this one, but I think in the interest of just kind of keeping it interesting here, we'll stagger it one. Last week, you went with all the picks first. The week before, I went with all the picks first. Since you're still leading me, we'll go literally, you go this one, I go next one, you go next one. That way it's 3-2, okay? So
am I up 2 games right now? Is that
I would say 2 games, because I remember it was about more or less a 4-game lead. And then obviously I picked up 2 games this past weekend.
Okay, that's good to know at this point. So yeah, no surprises here. Of course, I'm going with the Chiefs in the spirit of making the joke, because I'm always looking for an angle to make the joke. I will say Same analysis as the last time the Chiefs played the Raiders, which is on principle, the Raiders are not allowed to be good. And for that reason, I will take the Kansas City Chiefs to win, regardless of whether Carl Nassib or Darren Waller or Corey Littleton play for the Raiders on Sunday. I will play devil's advocate here for Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, so much that similarly to how Bill Belichick went for every single play being a run on Monday, the Kansas City Chiefs have basically said, we are going to play against the weaknesses of the defense that we are playing more than we're going to play into our strengths. So for the Kansas City Chiefs, that meant running the ball a lot against the Denver Broncos, controlling time of possession at the best they could, because again, the reason that game was so low scoring is because the Denver Broncos, and I cannot stress this enough, I've made this joke on my podcast, on the Instagram, and now here, the Denver Broncos had a 20-play, 89-yard drive that took up 11 minutes and ended with 0 points in the second quarter against the Kansas City Chiefs. When the Chiefs had the ball in the first quarter for 75% of the time, they went up 10-0 against the Denver Broncos. If they had kept that up consistently for the rest of the game, they probably win by 30 points instead of only winning by, I believe, 14, which was still enough to cover the spread last week. So Kansas City is playing into the weaknesses of the teams that they're playing. Against the Raiders, that probably means they can take the top off a little bit more. Maybe this is a 35-point week for the Kansas City Chiefs. They can kind of just play with whatever they have. But the part that gives me hope for the Kansas City Chiefs that they can make the Super Bowl this year, and I say hope knowing that I'm a Mahomie, not as a Kansas City Chiefs fan myself, but love me some Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, it's the only jersey I have back there in the NFL. But the Kansas City Chiefs, the thing that gives me hope that they will make the Super Bowl in the AFC, less confident than I've been in years, but still I think they're the best team in the AFC at this point. They can run the football very well this year. I don't know if that has to do with the offensive line being improved or Clyde Edwards-Helaire being healthy finally, but they can run the ball really, really well. And they could quietly do this last year. They just didn't need to ever do it last year because Patrick Mahomes was getting lucky with the turnovers until about December of last year. They can run the ball really, really well, even against teams that have stronger rush defenses. Now, the Denver Broncos, they don't have a stronger rush defense. Obviously, that's kind of why they went with that strategy. Buffalo doesn't have the strongest rush defense, but they ran the ball very well against Baltimore early on in the season, which I understand is a while ago into the year. New York Giants, they ran the ball very well. Sneaky good rush defense for the New York Giants this year. Like, obviously I say Giants defense and you're like, what? That's awful. That they've actually been okay stopping the run defense this year. They've been top half in the league. So Kansas City can run the ball even against teams that are pretty good at stopping the run. Not going to say they're the best running game in the league. They're not Baltimore. They're not the Arizona Cardinals this year. They're not the Green Bay Packers, who have been one of the best rushing teams in the NFL, but they've been pretty good this year at doing that. So that combination is just more so playing the matchups that they're going to play. And if anyone wants to start doubting Andy Reid's ability to coach offensive football, I will take the odds on the other side, no matter what you're giving me. If people are going to start betting against Andy Reid being able to read offenses and read defenses and game situations. So,
but he's not the primary play caller anymore. He hasn't been for a couple of years.
This is fair, but it doesn't mean that Andy Reid doesn't have a certain level of influence around offensive game planning for the week. Sometimes they run drives that are already predetermined. Andy Reid and Bieniemy are going back and forth. I actually haven't seen the video of Reid and Bieniemy's, what are we calling it, a kerfuffle?
Just a little bit of a gentleman's disagreement on the sidelines. You know, we saw even Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick kind of get in the ear of Mac Jones. Similar to that, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's just a little bit of frustration, but we have seen the Chiefs offense struggle in recent weeks.
Yeah, for sure. They have not passed the ball really at all. Tyreek Hill has been pretty much absent for like a month now, especially for people in fantasy. I know they're complaining a lot about Tyreek Hill now because it's been brutal out here with Tyreek Hill on your team. So yeah, I think I'm betting on the Chiefs to right the ship. A matchup against the Patriots would be so damn fascinating if it gets to that point in the playoffs, whether an AFC championship or otherwise.
See, that's why I have my concerns about the Chiefs as far as actually being a Super Bowl team this year. Considering that they have struggled so much to make adjustments, I look at the Patriots and what they've been able to do. Their entire season has been built around adjustments. adjusting around a rookie quarterback, adjusting around new pieces on the offense, changing the entire offense from what it was last year, changing from a power run game that they had to devise to being able to go back to their previous recipe for success. Those short passes, keeping everything pretty time control offense there. And plus, we've seen Bill Belichick have success against Andy Reid in the past. You would say Andy Reid has faced him a number of times now at this point. But if I was to bet on a team that's going to make the right adjustments and advance in the playoffs, right now I would take the Patriots in Foxborough.
The Patriots are plagued by the same problem that the Georgia Bulldogs had going into this season, and it's still the same thing, which is low upside offense, which is when the going gets tough, their offense kind of crumbles a little bit. Because if you had said like 6 weeks ago, I'd say of the teams that are in the playoffs right now, Patriots probably have one of the least talented offenses in the NFL. Very good offensive line, which obviously changes the math a little bit, as we're seeing from the Colts right now, where offensive line gets healthy, they win 5 out of 6 games. Jonathan Taylor's an MVP candidate. So offensive line being good helps, but quarterback, running back, skill position player combo, I could name of the 14 playoff teams, 12 or 13 have better players than the Patriots. And so that's the part that's concerning there.
People listening to this, people viewing this on a segment are going to think I'm a Chiefs hater. I'm a Patrick Mahomes hater. No, I went into this year with very high expectations of the Chiefs, just based off seeing them the last couple of years. The problem is I can also see them this year and tell that there's something that's not right with their offense. See that there's something that's not quite there. Now, what I can see also is their defense has made some large improvements, and I haven't officially announced my pick yet, so I'll just get out of the way. I am taking the Chiefs. So anyone that thinks I'm a Chiefs hater, I am taking the Chiefs in this game. I mentioned the Raiders' injuries that they're facing, but also part of the thing is with the improving Chiefs defense going against a Derek Carr-led offense that I like Derek Carr. He has one of the top 5 arm talents in the league, but he always shrinks at this point of the year. And you thought maybe it was a Gruden issue. Maybe it was the previous regime's issue. I think at this point, we're starting to get to the point where it's just a Derek Carr issue. Derek Carr, later in the year when the games seem to matter, seems to just regress because he still is able to make those throws, but he starts to turn them down. He stops being aggressive. There was 3 opportunities in the Raiders' last game against Washington where he could have hit Deshaun Jackson deep, and he turned those down for checkdowns. And if he doesn't have Darren Waller in the field, his security blanket, then who else is he targeting? Brian Edwards, who hasn't lived up to his draft pedigree? Obviously, Henry Ruggs is long gone.
Hunter Renfrow.
Hunter Renfrow is his next man up, and Hunter Renfrow is a fine talent. In fact, Hunter Renfrow, if they redrafted that NFL draft, I'm pretty sure he would have went in the top 3 rounds rather than going in the 5th or 6th round like he did. But it's not enough. They need Derek Carr to be aggressive. When they were winning early in the year, when they were on that 3-0 stretch, it was because Derek Carr was winning them games. Derek Carr was putting him in a position to win. And he hasn't done that for about a month now. And I don't see that changing going into Arrowhead, going into a December environment. This is another moment, too, where I know you said as a Chargers fans, you hate the idea that the Chargers can't travel to the Northeast where it gets a little colder. Derek Carr has never shown that in his career, the ability to do it. He is just not. Maybe being a Fresno State quarterback, going to Las Vegas, going to Oakland, never having to see snow, similar, I guess, Mac Jones, never seeing snow prior to last week's game. But Derek Carr, his December record has been terrible, one of the league's worst, and particularly in outdoor environments. I mean, they lost that game to the Jets a couple years ago when they were the heavy favorites because he could not compete in that weather. And he's lost multiple games in December at Arrowhead because he just can't get it done in that weather. So, yeah, I'm on the Chiefs. You're on the Chiefs. Any other closing thoughts on this one?
I've got 3 for you real quick here. 1, the good news for Patriots low upside offense is that the Chiefs have a low upside defense. Probably not going to get Sorensen pick 6s every week if you're balancing the Kansas City Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs defense. If you're balancing the Chiefs out for them. Number 2, it's not that you're a Chiefs hater. It's that you're a Raiders realist. That is an understandable reason to pick the Kansas City Chiefs. We all know the Raiders are not allowed to be good at football. And 3, Derek Carr is somehow still on pace to have the 4th most passing yards in the history of the NFL this season.
Yeah, all things that factor up when you are losing games. You do tend to throw for more yards. But Derek Carr, he's just not the same Derek Carr that we saw very early on. One thing I will say is I know the Chiefs are dealing with another injury in their secondary, so maybe that's something that hurts them moving forward. But overall, I think that this is just a good week for Kansas City to continue their winning streak. Fun fact before we close out, Andy Reid in his entire tenure in Kansas City has had a 5-game winning streak every single season. So we're seeing that in this year. So
that's amazing. Oh my gosh.
Just tells you how consistent they've been in the Andy Reid era in Kansas City. So Philadelphia fans, close your eyes and turn away because that's the coach that you let go.